after crawling under the bridge yesterday and seeing that piece of concrete that had broken off. I put this little illustration together to show you guys what I'm doing. So the bridge has a bunch of 6x12 pilings that go all the way down to bedrock, and they're up under the soil part that is partially eroded. And then this pool float represents a big piece of concrete that's about 1 foot in diameter and 8 feet long that broke off of the original footing, or maybe it's a pier. But anyway, initially I was just going to put a form on this side of the concrete, take it up to the top of the bridge, and then fill everything on that side in with concrete. But after looking at it, I thought over time this piece of broken concrete that's in there right now will probably pull away. So what I'm going to do instead is today I'm going in there with a hoe and a long pole, and I'm going to clear out the dirt around the back of one of the pilings on each end. So I will have 2 of these setups, and this is 3/8 inch logging chain. And then I just got back from the store where I got some 1/2 inch grade 5 bolts, and these things have a tensile strength, I believe, of 14,000 pounds or greater. So the bolts are actually stronger than the chain, and once this thing is in place, it will be completely encapsulated with concrete, so it's never going to go anywhere. But I just feel better when I put these grade 5 bolts on things that are actually going to have some load on them. And the reason I use the grade 5 bolts instead of the clevis hitch that came with this chain is I can get 6 bolts for the price of 1 clevis hitch. Again, this thing is going to be encapsulated in concrete, and after that it's never going to see a load or go anywhere. So this is just an illustration of what I'm doing. Taking the 3/8 inch logging chain, going around the existing piling, then I'm going to wrap down around that big piece of concrete that probably weighs 700 or 800 pounds that's in place now, just held on with a few pieces of rebar. Then I'm going to mate the chains together with a 1/2 inch grade 5 bolt, put my form in place, start pouring some concrete. So I'm under the bridge right now, and I just got most of my chain work done. Those boards that are laying there are going to be the forms. I'll stand them up in a few minutes. I've been under here like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. The back is sore, ibuprofen's my friend, but we're making some progress. So I dug around the back. I got the chain to come around this piece of concrete. We went around the piling in the middle there. On the other end, I have the chain across the concrete. Then I have this matrix in the back that will all be entombed in concrete. Then I'm going to take the hoe and pull some of that dirt back there to the front, so when the concrete dump comes, concrete will fill that whole thing in. But we're making some progress. It's only been an hour so far today, so I'll call this good. Well, we're back on the bridge form job. So today a friend is going to help me put this in. I made this as my form, and then it was so heavy with 6 boards it was tough to manipulate. So I cut it in half. So we have 2 sections that are 3 boards apiece. And you can see these pieces that I have on there. Once we're under the bridge, we'll butt it up to this piece, and I'll screw in from the side. We should be able to build this into one rigid form. If things go well, in about 30 minutes we'll be done. Now initially I was going to screw these 2 pieces of form together down under the bridge. Since I have a buddy here to help, we decided we'd put this thing together. We'll be able to get it into the water, and then we can manipulate it more easily down there and don't have to screw around trying to screw it together. Well, I just learned 2 things. The waders I'm wearing leak like a sieve. There's no turning back now. And this form floats like Huck Finn's raft. So this might not be so difficult to get it into position. Well, nothing is as easy as it might be. I measured incorrectly. So as we tried to pull this form into place, I didn't want quite as an aggressive angle as this. But these vertical members that I made were running into the decking up on top here. So we removed a couple more pieces of decking. But then, here in the middle, I had a piece of 2x8 that was just reinforcing one of the boards that had been cracked. So now this piece is actually hitting a beam. So my buddy went to get a saw. I'll cut that off, and then we'll try to push this into place. Well, I'm back working on the form for the bridge concrete work today. Down here under the bridge, you can see my buddy helped me put the form in. So it runs the length of the thing. And then another friend just helped me put these 2x8s across the top that are holding the vertical members, so when the concrete load is over there, it doesn't cause this thing to fall back. So I have the chains pulling down since this wood kind of wants to float up in the water. And then I have on the back side here a ratchet strap that will be replaced with a regular turnbuckle like truckers used to bind their loads. And this is what it looks like under the bridge now. And I have to cut a 2x8 that'll fill the space in here, because on the other side the ground has rocks on it and stuff, and over here when I hit bottom I was in more of an open bottom, so as a result I have that area that's open, and if I don't fill it, my concrete level can only come that high. So that's a project for tomorrow or another day. With the progress I've made today, I'm comfortable calling a concrete guy, setting up a 2-yard dump for sometime next week. And we'll get this thing buttoned up before the snow flies seriously. Here's a look at the form from 8 feet away, so you can get a feel for what I'm trying to do down here. This is what it looks like from the top side now. When you look down between the load-bearing members, you can see my form trapped in there between the 2x8s. So it should be able to take the load. That 2 tons of concrete should be the equivalent to about 6,400 pounds. And I'm only worried about the part that would try to be a side load coming to the south. You know, gravity is my friend, so most of the force actually goes down. Now I'll just button this thing back up. See you again in a few days. Well, today we're building the wings for the forms for the concrete pour. So I have this wing built, and I use that piece of 2x8 kind of stitching together for the joint, and then as weight to hold this wood down since it wants to float, I hung these 5-gallon pails here, and water weighs about 8.8 pounds per gallon, so you're looking at just under 45 pounds. So I have 90 pounds holding it down, and then I have a chain that runs across up there to a bush. So I'll put a load binder on it when those guys start pouring. If I have to pull it in a little bit, I will, but I think that's going to be fine. And then on the inside we've put that fiberglass slip sheet product, so when the concrete goes in, this should form kind of a patch, almost like a blood clot at the bottom, where the bottom of the river is a little bit contoured differently than the forms. But we're getting closer. Here we are on the east side of the form. So I have a little stopper here, have some load binders, using that tree as support, come across. So now we have a form system beneath the bridge. It's time to get the concrete guy out here. Here's what the forms look like from the top side. I'll add some to the end there so I can fill it all the way to the level of that railroad tie. But it's going to be nice when this is all filled with fresh concrete. Here's a final walk around of the forms. I expanded them on both sides since I have the concrete truck coming. I initially asked for 6 yards of concrete. Now I have forms enough to accept 10 yards of. So you can see I put the forms in. Then since the contour between the bottom of the little crick and the 2x8s is not perfect, I put that house wrap in there basically to catch the concrete like a burrito and hopefully cause it to not crawl under the forms. And then I put a huge chain around the whole thing, and on this side I have a load binder, on the other side I have a load binder, My first wife used to call me a chain hoarder, but today I have every piece of chain that I own in service. Actually, every piece of chain I own with the exception of one. And then I put some of these structural screws in just to hold the chain at the level I want it. And I put those things down beneath center so the wall doesn't want to cam over on it. It's pretty time consuming building that little piece. That was no fun. And over here we wrap around. There's a tree it's tied to with another load binder. On the north side we have this structure. I put those pails on there to serve as weight to hold them down since the lumber wanted to float. There's my load binder going to another tree. So that's what it looks like. Now we have the concrete guy come with 10 yards of love and hopefully reinforce this thing so it'll be good for 100 years. Well, today is pour day. Cement truck is due here in 5 minutes. So I threw some stone down there along that house wrap, trying to make a tighter seam so the concrete won't run into the stream. And looking at it, looks like it did a pretty decent job. And I put those pieces of chain in there just so that chain will be into that concrete piece, and later I can anchor it to that piece of rebar from the original foundation. So this thing is supposed to discharge off the front, and I'll have him pull onto the bridge here and fill this north end first. I believe this will take about 5 yards. Then he'll have to back up and we'll put the remaining material on the south end. Everything goes well. About 40 minutes he'll be gone. You can see I put a secondary 25,000 pound tow strap around the top of my forms, just in case the weight pushing out seems to be more than I expected. And then what I consider to be the weakest link in this engineering project is these two stakes that I drove 4 feet in the ground here. And I have the chains going from them around my forms, and then the belt to go with the suspenders is right here. I just hooked this to the back of the truck, and if I see that tension starts to come on this thing, then I have to leave the truck here for about 6 hours while the stuff sets up. And if there is no tension, once the forms are filled, I'll just unhook this chain, go up to the house. Hopefully the lady that lives here will make some nice breakfast for me. So here we go. And here's the start of the pour. In one of the other videos you could see how I wrapped these forms with something that looks like the bands on a whiskey keg, and this stuff tighter than Dick's hat band. But these two pipes that I drove into the ground seem to be bearing the load. Now it's just a matter of giving that concrete time to set up. Overall, this has been a very educational and satisfying experience. I think it's going to be man 1, water under the bridge 0 here shortly. Well, I'm in the water doing the final recon, and this thing turned out surprisingly well. I thought if something was going to slip, it was going to be this long section. This morning I came out and put this 25,000 pound poly cable on there, and I tied it to the back of the truck as a suspenders to go with the belt. But all that held together fine. And then this corner was critical. This thing filled in beautifully. So on the south side of the bridge, everything did exactly what I hoped it would. I had a little bit of blowout here on the end, but I don't think that's going to cause any type of problem. Now when I come over on this side, from an engineering standpoint, the mistake I made is that I had the screws supporting the chain beneath the screw instead of above it. So as the load came on, the concrete pushed the bottom of the form out and some of the concrete squirted out. But overall, I'll certainly call this thing a success, and I'll have some work to do next summer, but it'll be nothing near what I just did here this fall. So I hope this freelance engineering project helped you, and have a great day.